How do you go about making $1 million in the music industry? Well, that's easy. You start with 2 million. But anyway, that's an old industry joke, but it actually sheds light on the fact that only 5% of people that enter the music business make a profit, make a living for longer than 1 year. Now, I didn't know this when I got my drum, my first toy drum at the age of 3, beneath the Christmas tree in my tenement apartment on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And I still have that very first drum in my studio right here as a little reminder of my humble beginnings. But how much do those odds, those 5% odds, increase when I went on to not make a living for longer than 1 year, but I played with platinum artists, 3 of which are in the Hall of Fame. I played on many top 10 hits and toured multiple TV tours and global performance tours for over 1 billion fans. So how does one beat incredible odds and go from playing beneath the Christmas tree to performing for crowds such as this? This crowd in particular was Mannheim, Germany. I was in a band in 1986 called Kraft, and we opened for Queen for 3 months in Europe. So how do you go from the Christmas tree with a toy drum to playing crowds like this for over 50 years? Well, as you could see, I beat some incredible odds. And I think that you guys employing these 5 principles that I came up with that are universal principles, and they're belief, enthusiasm, attitude, tenacity, and service. And I was on a podcast the other day, and someone asked me, well, how did you come up with those principles? Where did that come from? And the advice that my father gave me at a very, very young age was this. He said, Sandy, don't ever do or say anything that will disgrace the Gennaro name. And that really struck me. And another way of saying it is have your words and actions always reflect a positive light on your name. And that will create, I'm telling you that from experience, I get very emotional when I talk about this, because when you weave these 5 principles into the fabric of your everyday life, things happen. People come out of the woodwork to help you, and experiences and opportunities happen that you had no idea existed. And one of the benefits of this talk will be, hopefully, that every time you hear a song by Cyndi Lauper, Joan Jett, the Monkees, etc., you'll not only think of me, but you'll think of these 5 principles and how they help me, and I'm confident that they will help you in your life and business. Now, in the limited amount of time, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'm going to focus on one of the more important of these 5 attributes, and it's service. Service to other human beings. Service to me is altruism. Altruism is thinking outside yourself. It's not all about you. And empathy. Empathy to me is treating everyone not only like you would want to be treated, but treating everyone like you would want to be treated if you were in their shoes. And after a concert in Connecticut, a very hot, sweaty July concert in Connecticut, we all rushed off the stage in Hartford Arena because we had a long drive. And me being the sweaty drummer, I was always the last one out of the dressing room. So in the corner of my eye, as I'm rushing around the dressing room, getting my stuff together, I see this guy in the doorway, and he's pictured on the right. He's got a pen and he's got a camera. And I could have put the rock star hat on, the arrogant rock star hat on, and just blew right by him, being that I'm in a hurry and I got to get going. But I didn't. I put the Sandy hat on, and I engaged this guy. I went over to him and I said, listen, buddy, I'm really in a big hurry, but what can I do for you? He goes, oh, would you mind signing this? I go, what's your name? I say, Dave. I go, okay, Dave. and I signed his autograph. I took the picture, and I said, I got to go, Dave. He goes, Sandy, one more second. Would you mind recommending me for some gigs in New York City because I'm a bass player? I said, Dave, I can't recommend you unless I hear you play. So this is 1981. Here's my card. Here's my address and my home phone number. Send me a cassette of your playing, and I'd be happy to refer it to some of my musical industry contacts in New York City. He said, I can't believe Sandy has given me his home address. Dave, I'm really in a hurry. It's okay. It's no big deal. Just send me a cassette. He gave me a big hug. Thank you very much, Sandy. I really, really appreciate your time and engaging with me. I walked out of walked out of the dressing room not knowing whether I would ever hear from him again. Well, about 3 weeks later, I got the cassette. I referred it to some friends in the music industry, and nothing really happened. But about 3 years later, Dave calls me on the phone and says, hey, Sandy, I'm managing this girl now. I just signed her to Epic Records. She's going to be the biggest star in 1984. She's going to be a phenomenon. I want you to be the drummer in her band. I said, David, I can't join a brand new band. I'm just getting off an arena tour. He goes, Sandy, you don't understand. You were so nice to me in that doorway. I want you to be part of this success. Please come down to the studio and meet her. So I went down to the studio, and the artist ends up being Cyndi Lauper. So I joined her band. We did a worldwide tour. It was one of the biggest tours I ever did. And was that thanks enough for me engaging 5 minutes in the doorway with Dave? No. Well, before I go on, I want to clear one rumor up. And Cyndi Lauper's band did not pick out their own stage clothes. But anyway, in the audience at one of Cyndi Lauper's concerts, there was Joan Jett. And 5 years later, Joan Jett called me and wanted me to tour with her, and I did a couple of world tours with Joan Jett. So was that enough payback for spending 5 seconds or 5 minutes with Dave in the doorway, doing world tours with Cyndi Lauper and world tours with Joan Jett? No, it wasn't. Because in Charlotte, North Carolina, on November 23rd, 1984, I met this beautiful woman, and her name was Sherry. And we saw each other long distance, and she moved up to New York in 1985, and we're still together today, enjoying a very, very happy marriage, and we're together 36 years later. That little encounter with Dave in the doorway changed my life. We have a very healthy, well-adjusted 26-year-old daughter named Jerry, and pre- and post-COVID, she is the road manager for Leanne Womack. Every time Cyndi Lauper comes into town, into Nashville, we always go to the show, and I always remind Cyndi how thankful I am for that opportunity, because you never know. It's the little things, it's the the seemingly insignificant person, the little situations, the little emails, the little clients, the little comments that could make the biggest difference in your life. So when Dave in the doorway comes into the doorway of your life, do you just blow by him, or do you engage him because he's a fellow human being? And little will you know, the 5-minute encounter that you engage with the Dave in the doorway of your life can change your life. And you engage with them without anything in return. And magical things will happen. It's a law. It's not my opinion. So just recapping, you have to believe in yourself, you have to believe in a higher power, and you have to believe in possibilities. As long as there's breath in you, there are possibilities that could happen. So there's a little story I'd like to tell, a short little story about possibilities and about self-limiting thinking. People are the ones that self-limit their possibilities. Two men are fishing. They're side by side. One guy is picking up big fish and small fish, putting them in his pan. The other guy to his right are picking up big fish and small fish, but he's throwing the big fish back into the water. Finally, the other guy goes, "Hey, buddy, why are you throwing the big fish back and only keeping the small ones?" He said, "Well, because I only have an 8-inch frying pan at home." So that's a little cute little story about, your life is a self-fulfilling prophecy on the full end and on the empty end. So think positive about your possibilities. Enthusiasm. Of course, enthusiasm is the fuel that takes you through to your goal. And the analogy I like to give is that even though you don't know what the future will bring, you don't know what the potential of a situation will, how it will turn out. But I love the analogy, the metaphor of Christmas morning, when I've gotten up on many Christmas mornings at 5 in the morning when the house is dark and I look under the Christmas tree and there's all these presents, but they're all wrapped. You don't know what the presents are, but you know that they're good. And that's the way I look at life, basically. I look towards events that haven't happened yet. And attitude, of course, attitude is your attitude of gratitude for what you've been blessed with so far in your life. And the thoughts, your thinking, your way of thinking is the only thing that we have total control over. And an attitude of accountability, where don't waste a minute of your time blaming outside circumstances for your situation. You are the captain of your ship, and you guide your way. From beneath the Christmas tree at 3 years old, for playing in front of 110,000 people with 3 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame artists, you have to have that attitude that something good is going to happen. That's definite. And tenacity, of course, tenacity is once you have that belief and the visualization of something good is going to happen, you're excited about it, and you would not let any problems stand in your way to get it. Because problems that come, and believe me, it wasn't a bed of roses going through that 50 years in the music business, swimming with the sharks in sometimes murky water. We know with the music business, it wasn't easy at times, but I had my eye on the prize, and nothing was going to stand in my way to do it. And, it's like Thomas Edison said, I never made a mistake inventing the light bulb, but I learned 10,000 ways of how not to do it. And I learned several thousand ways on how not to conduct myself moving towards my goal. And of course, we addressed service already. And service is a very, very important part of thinking outside yourself. It's very, very important. Remember altruism, and remember and empathy. And remember, and I want you to be reminded of these attributes every time you hear a song by an artist that I've been involved with. So I'm going to leave you with one thought. We should learn from crayons. How could we learn from crayons? Well, crayons are all different sizes. Some are worn out. Some are fresh and new. Some have weird names. Some are different colors, but all the crayons have a special place in the big picture. But they all, in spite of all of their differences, they live in the same box. So just take this with you. In light of different political opinions, religious opinions, sexual preferences, nationalities, we all are human beings, and what the common thread through all of us is that we have a spirit and we have emotions, and this is what makes us different than a tulip or a dog, is that we're human beings and we're all members of the same family. So I want you to remember these every time you hear a song that I've been involved with.